Gemara. Today's daf is daf Samach Ches. This is Monday's Gemara. We are up to the Gemara here, 4 lines from the top of the page. And we're talking about different kinds of mashkins. We're trying to help out the malva to get some benefit without actually being ribas. And we talked about having deductions. If you get property as a mashkin, and regarding the produce, if you take deductions, perhaps it's even though the deduction you take off the loan is not equal to the amount of the yield of that particular field, it's still all right according to some. Okay, so now we're up to the Gemara here, about 4 lines at the top. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi said, "Amruli Sava de Mosa Mechasia." The elderly people of this city told me, "Stam mashkanta shasa." That when somebody gives security, property, which is something serious, it's usually for an extended loan, a year length. The mainaf kamina. What do we need to know what a stam mashkin is? Di ochale shasa motzim misalakle. That only after the year expires can the borrower say, "Here, take the money and give me back my field." But if less than a year, le motzim misalak cannot chase more. Even though we learned before that there are some regions where the minig is that the loiva can go to Malva at any time and say, "Here, take the money, give me my field back," but not the first year. Ravashi is another thing. The people, the citizens of Mechasia told me, the elderlies, my mishkanta. What's the origin of the word mashkanta? Mashkin. Word mashkin is the shchone gabe, that he's a neighbor. That suddenly this lender now becomes a neighbor to this particular property. The Mainaf Kimina, what's the point? The Dina de Bava Metzia. We know there's a din that if you have a property to sell, the neighbor have the first right of refusal. He now becomes a neighbor. Big Machlekes Rishonim, whether it means that he even trumps the real neighbor on the border. That means that he is first because he's right inside the property, or it means that he's equal to the Bava Metzia, equal to the neighbor. Because the din is that if you sell to somebody else, the Bava Metzia can seize it. So does he have first right, or at least equal to the other Bava Metzia, the one who physically lives neighboring this property? Amar Rava says, less hilchas of the halacha is not like the following 3 cases, which the Gemara will delineate in a minute what they are. Number 1 is like Tarshi Papanoi, the arrangement that Tarshi arranged that a Papa did. It's not going to be like him, as we'll soon see. But like Tishtari Mechazanoi, nor the documents of Chazanoi are valid, but like nor like the people who lease property. And we'll talk about that arrangement of Nashai. Now, the Gemara will explain. Ketarsha Papanoi. What do you mean like Tarshi Papanoi? Ketarsha de Rapapa. Rapapa was a beer maker, producer, and we said the last time that during the season it's very expensive and off season is cheap. And he would sell it to people off season for the price of the season. And he said it's not rivus. Why isn't it rivus? Because I have no benefit from it. First of all, the beer itself won't go sour, so it makes no difference to me if I sell it today or tomorrow, and I don't need the money. So I gain nothing from it. So there's no ribus here. And we disagree with him because as far as you're concerned, you're right. But as far as the buyer is concerned, he's paying now ribus. He'll be paying today the price of tomorrow, which is more expensive. So therefore, it is forbidden. What's the Shtari Mechazanai? The Shtari Mechazanai was the Zokfile Leravcha Akarna. We are going to learn soon. We are soon going to learn that the whole concept of an iska. An iska goes as follows. So I'll just give you a little introduction because it explains the Gemara here, but also explains the whole entire Gemara from the Mishnah and onwards. And that is that you have an investor and you have who wants to invest in a business or somebody's abilities, and that person is going to do all the work. So there's a few possibilities. One is when the investor invests 100% of the money, and the investor takes full responsibility. If the money is lost, it's the investor's problem. If money is gains, the investor has a gain. So that's one particular way. And then he says to the partner, and you will get 50% of the profits. So that isn't a problem because there's no loan here at all. It's just a business arrangement. The problem is that nobody's going to do that. Why would an investor take 100% of the risk? So the Chachamim therefore came up some other ideas. On the other hand, if let's say the investor says to the guy, "Okay, I'll invest the $100 you need for your business enterprise, but you take full responsibility. If anything goes wrong, you're responsible." Then basically it's a loan, and if it's a loan, then the investor has no right to take any of the profits. That's pure interest. So what do we do? The remedy is as follows. This is how Iska works. that the investor lends $100 and he says as follows: half of it you're responsible for, and half of it I'm responsible for. The half that you're responsible for is a loan, and therefore it's your money. And if you make a profit, you're entitled to 50% of the profit. The half that I am, the investor says, the half I'm responsible for is my money, and I'm just storing it with you. It's a pekadon. I'm storing it with you, and therefore the profit, 50% of the profit goes to me. Again, it's not iribis. Why is it iribis? Because it's the 50% profit is purely, I guess, an outgrowth of the money that I stored with you. And the money that I lend you, I'm getting nothing. You're getting that full profit. That's called a niska. The only problem with that is, and that's what we're going to learn in the mission is, why is the guy working for your half if he gets nothing for it? So you need to pay him some kind of a wage. Otherwise, it looks like the only reason why he's working for your half is because you lent him the money to work for his half. That's pure ribis. So therefore, you have to give him some kind of a wage. So what these people over here did was, in the Shtarim Chazanoi, they decided that this profit, we're going to fix an amount. We're going to fix an amount and say that every year, even though you gave me a 50-50, the way we just said, and the way it normally works is if there's a profit, then we split it evenly, and if there's a loss, we split it evenly, because remember, 50% is a loan, 50% is my own thing. So if you lose $20, I lose 10 and you lose 10. If we gain $20, I win 10 and you win 10. So what they did was that they put into the shtar, a document, how much the profit has to be fixed every single year. And therefore that looks like straight ribas, because I know there's a profit. I know there'll be a profit at all. So that is interest. They would fix an amount of how much profit it should be, and they added it to the keren. Because and they wrote that in the shtar. The problem is, who said there'll be a profit? This is a very sad story. Mar Bar Meimar said, and the reason why they did that is because they didn't really trust the partner. The partner will say there was no profit. Maybe there was a profit. So they say, you know what? I don't care. Every year you have to give me $10. If you make more than $10, you're good fortune. You make less, too bad. So that was their motivation. They didn't trust the partner to say how much the profit was. The problem is that now it looks like it is. Comes along Mar, the son of Ameber, and he said to Rav Ashi, but Abba Avarachi, my father did exactly that. And he would put it in the shtar. But if the partner would say, look, we didn't make a profit, he would never collect. So there's never a ribis because he never took it. If there was no profit. If there was a profit, that's what he took. They came to him and look, see, we made no money. He would believe that, not take a cent. So Rav Ashi said, Rav Ashi says, that's all good. That's all good if a Meimar is alive and he's the one who has to deal with these people, so you trust them. But if a Meimar passes away, the Nofal Shtar Kame Yasmin, the shtar falls in your hands, your son, falls in your hands, and you might say, well, it says in the shtar you have to give me $10 every year, give it to me. What's going to happen then? And that's looks like a ribis. If there's no profit and he's still taking $10, that's interest. So the Gemara, this is like a slip of words. When he said if a Meimar dies, he was just using it as an example. But the fact is, he said a Meimar dies. The Noch Nafshid Meimar. As a result of that, a Meimar passed away. So Rav Ashi actually killed a Meimar, so to speak. And the shaila is whether he has to do tshuva. Is that considered manslaughter? Is that considered irresponsible role? Because we had a number of occasions in the Gemara where Amoraim said things without realizing, and not unintentional, but because their words came out, and the tzaddik's words are so powerful that it had this negative impact. So the Gemara said, what's the next case? Chakirei nar shoye. These people who would lease a property, the way it works is as follows: they would lease a property and they would fix a certain amount of produce that they would pay the landlord every year. And if they made more than that, that's good luck. If they made less than that, too bad. They still have to give a fixed amount. So this is what happened. So the lenders who took the property from the borrowers, and the borrowers usually are poor, took the property of the borrower as a security, and then they rented it back to these borrowers so they can work the field, and they had a fixed amount they would take every year. And this looked like ribas. Now, the truth of the matter, they could lease it out to other people, and it wouldn't be a problem. But because they lease it back to the borrowers, it looks like, and the borrower now every year gives them a certain amount of crop, it looks like they're paying him an interest on the loan because like they're not only get back their money from the loan, they're also getting this crop. So the Gemara says, Chakiri Nashoy, the Kasir Hacha, they write the following. They write Mashkele Planya Ada Leplanya, that this person transferred the land to this other person as security. V'hodar Chakra Minei, and then the lender took the land and leased it back to the borrower. So the Gemara says, it doesn't make sense. Amos Kona de Kanyanale. When did the lender suddenly become the owner of the field that he can lease it back to these borrowers and then charge them for working on the real in their field? However, even that's no good. Today, the Kokosri Hachi, they write the following. Kanina Minei. Today, they would write the following: that the lender was kind of the property, the Shahina Kami Idne, and a number of years went by where the Malda was a complete control of the property. He had to sow the property himself, and he had to reap, harvest, and all that. He did it all himself. And they worked with a deduction, like we learned before, that a property, if you deduct every year a certain nominal amount, it no longer looks like ribis. And then, according to Rashi, 3 years later, and then and because the lender, according to Rashi, had it for 3 years, and we know we're going to go that 3 years is a sign of ownership, and so therefore, as far as the parents is concerned, optics, it's the Malvas. And so the Malva rents it back to the lender is not a problem. And why did the Chachamim think it's not a bad idea? The lenders have to have some benefit. The traders cannot collect interest. So we were thinking constantly ways, which is till now, the trigonometric deduction. With the lender, definitely it's tilted towards the lender, but we do have an incentive for lenders to be interested in lending money. People say, I don't have any money to lend you because they don't want to tie up their money. They might need it for a business deal or something. So we need to give them some incentive, some benefit. So the Chachamim thought it'd be a good idea for all these borrowers. Shabbat, I mean, it's all right. And the Gemara said, well, it's still not right, because even though for the first 3 years they didn't work the field, now after 3 years by giving the field, releasing the field back to the borrower every year gives them a certain amount of produce. It looks like it was according to Rashi, actually it doesn't even look like it is Ribus. The Mura Mahatera Rashi seems to learn. Because the guy is working with the borrower working the field is giving you the produce. On top of the money to be using. That looks like it is. Where is Ribus? Next mission. Now we're going to learn about what I told you before about Iska. When you hear about Head Iska, so this is how it operates. This is an Iska. So Iska is an investor who wants to invest money. So the deal is 50-50. 50% is a loan, which means that the partner is responsible for losses and is entitled to profits back. It's the borrower's money. Another part, the investor, 50% is totally on his achayis. So that's really a deposit, and he's entitled to profit and reap from that. Say, so why is that guy working? Why is he helping you out? His leverage itself, so you have to pay him a wage. And we'll have the part of like is what kind of wage? A serious wage or just a nominal wage? That's the Mishnah. Ein Moishiven Chenbeni Lamach Tzizchar. You don't go to a storekeeper and say, hey, here's the fruits. I want you to sell it. You're responsible for half the fruits. I'm responsible for half the fruits. And the profits will be split 50-50. Now, why not? Because you're not paying him a wage. Why is he working for your half? And worse, I'm explaining why I need both cases. To give money to somebody, he said, you go buy the fruits. Not how you gain the fruits. You go buy the fruits. You go for extra, and it has to do that. And then half of your responsible, half I'm responsible, same thing, you split the profit 50-50. Unless you pay him a wage, like a worker. What does that mean, like a worker? When you must pay him a wage, and otherwise, why is he working for you gratis? It's not for the fact that you lent him money, so that's it. Ein Moishiva, the same principle. Ein Moishiva, you cannot go and say, okay, somebody, hey, I'm going to give you the eggs. Let's value the eggs right now. And then I want you to get your chickens in to incubate my eggs. And then we'll see if they give birth to chickens and so on. So what they're worth now. That's profit. That is profit. And we'll split 50-50. And you're responsible for half the eggs, not responsible for half the eggs. The ain, you don't do that again, because you have to give the person a wage. The ain shamin agoling b'syochil l'machza, nor do you assess, baby calves or goats for half And say the same thing. Okay, right now I want you to take care of them, and then turn into a cow, or I want you to take care of them and become a horse. And what's the value of these things when in the infant stages? What's the value now that it's a horse? We'll split it 50-50, and you're responsible for 50%, not 100%. You don't do that. Okay, nice. Here you have to give not only the wages, but also the zaina. You have to feed the animals, and it's an expense thing. You need to compensate. Hold on, why is he doing it for you for free? Only because you lent the money. Again, that's famous. Aval mekabling, you can, except agoli, the syach, the machze. Here we're talking about a case where the investor takes full responsibility. So what's the chiddush? Obviously, take full responsibility. There's no loan here. But we'll see that the mekabling, agoli, the syach, and the machze. And we say, look, we're going to split half to half, 50-50 the profits. Right. And Omegadin so what's the deal? The general deal is that you have to wait until they're shlosh and a third. I guess they grew up to third size, like real. At least a little longer baby calf. And the chamoy actually, by a donkey is able to carry some things that has make an arrangement. I say when it matures, what's considered maturity by an animal, by a calf, a third grade of now, and by some say 3 years old, and by a donkey until it's capable of carrying things and being what a donkey is supposed to do, what a donkey is supposed to do. Okay, so the Gemara, Tony, we look Kipoyo. What do you mean when you say what kind of we talk about? So we say Kipoyo bottle. Bottle means what would you be prepared to give up your job and be unemployed for nothing? How much, let's say you're getting 100,000 an hour, but if you do nothing, how much you still how much minimum you would take, but you do nothing, $20 an hour. So that's what you have to pay. Boil bottle. My kipoil bottle. What exactly mean boil bottle? I'm going to buy a kipoil bottle. Shall oisim alacha the bottle mina. Abaya says, for example, this guy was a very skilled carpenter. Is how much a person will give up to not to do nothing, to give up this difficult work and take a job which is less strenuous. It's still a job. You still get paid more than just somebody's unemployed. But how much you get paid to take a cut in wages to have an easier job? And that's what we pay. That's what you have to pay your partner if he's working for you. Now, why did the Mishnah have to say 2 cases? One with the storekeeper, we gave the storekeeper the fruits itself to sell, and the second case was you gave the storekeeper, gave the person money to buy the fruits to sell. Why do you go to both? The principle is the same. We need them both. Who tell us this case of the storekeeper, who the saga like a bottle. I would say, because he's not doing much work really, because you already gave the fruits, all this puts on the shelf and sells it. Okay, so if you pay a nominal wage, I said a bottle. Somebody who gives up most of the work, but is not a big bother. I go to guys and say, well, here's the money. I want you to go buy the fruits and buy get price and so on. Here, it's a lot more effort, a lot more work. Maybe you have to pay more. The nafesh tichi. Maybe not another point bottle. Maybe you have to pay him an accurate wage, a wage that reflects the work that he's doing. Therefore, the mission says no. Probably bought the good enough. Be telling him you've been paying. I mean, I would thought house and make it there. You probably bought a big brother. The chem doesn't do nothing. He put the fruits on his shelf and just sells itself. Maybe you don't get to give a bottle, just a token amount. That feel like probably by maybe all it is was you give him a little bit of fish juice. So you gave him something that's already considered a nominal. He's working for you for that. He's doing all this effort. It's not much of an effort. You don't even want dry fig. That's enough for a wage. Therefore, the Mishnah says no. Our Mishnah holds that you have to pay him something much more substantial than that. So talking about how much to pay. Talking about we learned. How much do you pay? Bain merube, bain mu'ud. It shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you pay. The idea is you need to pay something to this partner of yours, so that any work he does on your behalf is because of that pay. It's not because of interest. Abuda says even less than that. I feel like probably my little bit say only fish juice good enough. Only one dried fig. That is his wage. Shimon ben Yochai says no. Shimon says you have to pay the full wages. Otherwise, it looks like a ruse. It is interest. Tell him we learned. You don't say easy in the goats, the sheep, You don't. So anything which does not produce anything, doesn't give you any. You have no benefits from working this thing, unless you give him some kind of a wage, because he's going to be then working for you, and he has no income from the half that you have. So why is he working for you? Other than the fact that it's interest. And therefore become a case of again from an iski here where the guy takes 50% responsibility and the other guy takes 50% responsibility, and therefore you have to pay something. And why we're talking about dovish is because if it's something that it does produce, then the person taking care of it gets the benefit of your animals, whatever it produces, as we'll see. Second one further. Um, but Rabbi Yehuda said, "Shamin esse easy." No, you could assess the value of the goat today versus the profit. Even though you don't pay a wage, you know why? You get milk from it. So therefore, that person taking care of it has a benefit. He gets the milk. And as at a cholib and the sheep too, you can share the sheep. Therefore, you have a benefit from that as well. And the shaitfeis umartis, the wool as well. If you're taking it through the water, there's always some hair residue in the water. You have some wool in the water, and if you pluck some of the hair out, so therefore there is benefit to the partners. You don't have to get a wage because that benefit is there. That's a Tanagolis, and the Tanagolis as well. You also have benefit from the Tanagolis. And therefore, because it gives you eggs, and again, because it gives you eggs, so therefore you have some benefit from that. So Tanakama, so how come the Tanakama argues and says he shouldn't work unless you give him a wage? But Tanakama holds Giza v'cholov lo'isipik l'schar amole umezayne. That Tanakama holds that the sharings and the milk is not sufficient to adequately compensate the person for working for you all that work and effort. Says the Gemara, the truth matter is when it comes to sharings and milk, there's no argument. Definitely, it's substantial enough. Keep pligi. They're talking about benis yoiva. They're talking about the whey. So this is not really the part of the milk. This is the watery part of the milk, and the toise, the leftovers of the wool, and that's what they're arguing. If it's all right to 50-50, or you have to give them a separate wage. Tanakama so you have to pay him a proper wage, and therefore this is nominal, not good enough. And therefore you can't have this kind of arrangement 50-50. And because then why is he working for you? And whatever benefits he gets is so minimal, it doesn't help. And it doesn't cover it. And eventually you just look at wool. He didn't like his father, I feel even he just dipped in some fish juice. He had one dry fig. That's sufficient. It's just more token thing that you pay him something. So therefore, no longer does it look like interest. So I've learned. Maskedes isha lechavata, a woman can rent out to like lease to her friend a chicken and say, I want back every year. I'm going to give you this chicken to rent it out, and I want you to pay me back every year with 2 chicks. And it's not a problem because again, there's no loan here. It's renting, and this is an arrangement. This is the profit I'm getting. It's not a problem. It's the only problem when it's a loan. Isha sha'amra l'chavra, woman says a friend, tanagoylishly, the hen is mine. Ubeyim shalichi, and the eggs are yours. Ba'ani ba'at. Mechalek befreichin. Now we're going to arrange where we split the profits. So that's already talking about an iska. And we're supposing a splitting, we automatically assume that 50% is loan and 50% you're responsible, 50% I'm responsible. And therefore, the question is, if the 50-50 profits, what about why is the person working for you other than giving a wage? Because our eggs there, we'll see in a minute. Therefore, maybe it's good. I will soon see. Maybe it's a way. So that's the question. How can it be matzah, but you have to pay a wage? How can you just say it's good enough? Why is that person working for you? Because you lent him half the eggs, so therefore, or lent her half the eggs. So that is, and he's working for you for nothing. That is ribus. My answer is Ika Beyim Muzaris. The eggs that don't get fertilized, the eggs that don't actually turn into chicks, and they sort of go off, that partner can keep it, and that's her wage. Even though it's not a big amount, it's good enough that you get a nominal amount that's good enough. And that's Rabbi the whole. You don't need. He said even fish juice is enough. So what have we learned? If let's say the minig is to pay what do you call it? The mice, the behema. So if the minig is that they would do a deal with smaller lamb or small calf, whatever it is, and 50-50, and you take Shabbat and a half, I take Shabbat and a half, and and since the guy, whoever the partner is, has to work a little bit extra because it has to carry these young behemoths, from one place to another place, and so therefore and you pay them for that, so that's a wage, and that's good enough. The mois lebehema milin be'ein mishanin minigam bedina, and you should not change from whatever the custom is. Shimon ben Gamliel says that because these small animals need extra effort, so definitely you have to pay them something. Otherwise, again, it looks like ribus. Shimon says, "Shamin egel im imai." But if this baby calf is together with mother, so here you don't have to carry anymore the baby calf because it always follows its mother, and you don't have to put any extra effort to make it move. So therefore, there's no extra real tircha, and so too when it comes to feed, since the mother is productive, she is far more productive than the amount of food you give to the mother, and that will also include the food you give to the baby calf. So you don't have to there give any extra money for carrying the animals. Even in the place where the minig is normally for baby calves, you have to pay extra money because they have to carry it around. But now that the mother is there, because the mother is there, it takes care of that. So the Gemara, but Shimon ben Gamliel says that you don't have to worry. But still there's a cost of feed and everything else. You don't have to pay for its effort for the baby calf. So it says, Ika Galim, he gets a nominal amount. He gets galim, the dung that comes from the animal, he gets to keep, fertilize and so on. The Galim says that's not good enough because nobody really wants to take the dung, so it's hefker, and therefore when you picked it up or you took it, the partner took it, he didn't get it from you, he took it from hefker. Amar Nachman says, halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha like Rabbi Yehuda, even a nominal amount of wage is good enough, and you just dip it into fish juice. And halacha k'Rabbi Yasi, but Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha k'Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So the halacha in all these three cases are that we are very, very lenient. Each of these machlekes, and we said the halacha is that the lenient one, you have to give them only a nominal amount. So and we said before, for example, the little bit of wool that comes off when he goes into the water, that's a good enough payment. That's Rabbi Yasi Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that if the baby animal with his mother, you don't have to really give much at all. The galal, the dung, is good enough. Telling about a little story. Who started the start of a Kasbeh? It says, Palga ba'age, Palga ba'hefset. There was a star. Sorry, I skipped a line. B'nai Rab Eli, the children of Rab Elish, Nafik Alaya, who started, somebody produced a star to them. Now the Kasbeh, and there, Rab Elish had an arrangement with somebody the children didn't know about. And that arrangement was Palga ba'age, Palga ba'hefset. The arrangement we had till now. 50 is a pekadon, 50 is a loan. And 50 loss, 50 and profit, we charge, we divide 50-50. And there's no mention about a wage. And we just said if there's no wage and the guy is working for the investor, it's actually a case of ibis. Omar Rab Elish Gabra Rab Elish was a great man. And there's no way he definitely would not have allowed an Issa to happen. And that's like with Naiva Sit and Michshel. Interesting. They want to say, okay, manushach. So therefore, manushach. So look, so let's reinterpret the star in a way to make sense. And that is that the silent that the partner is doing all the work and effort will get more than half. So, for example, if they both agreed half half lost each one. So the investor is going to wear half of the loss of their losses, and the other partner will wear half loss of losses. When it comes to profit, it's 2/3 and a third. That the investor only gets a third, and another guy gets 2/3. And that extra profit he gets, that's his wage. Or if the profits are 50-50, then the investor takes on 2/3 of the losses, and the other guy takes on only 1/3 of the losses. So says the Gemara, this is how Rabbi interprets the Shtar. Manush, if you're telling me that it's this is how you read the Shtar. If half of it is profit, then take then the investor takes 2/3 of the losses. If half of it is a loss, then take til sabager. Then if it's 50-50 the losses, then the partner puts in all the effort, gets 2/3 of the profit. Omar of Kana, that's we're no reinterpreting the whole stav, because otherwise he'll be able to Michel and unfortunately talk about why he's not able also this Isa Ribis. Because just like there's an Isa Ribis for the lender, there's an Isa Ribis for the borrower as well to give Ribis. So why is Rabbi Elish only worried about the Feiva? Why are we only worried about Rabbi Elish for the Feiva? So because there's a Megabi Chiddush. When the Torah says that a borrower is over Aveda, is actually difficult to understand. The borrower needs the money and he's happy to pay interest. So what Aveda did he do? He's like moichel the money. What's the Aveda? Nevertheless, the Torah says it's forbidden. So we say, when is it forbidden? Only if it's ribas mahat. Where it's ribas midrabanan, then it's where avak ribas or ribas rabbanan. Then there's no isra on the labor to pay it. This is avak ribas, therefore there's no isra. However, Vakana said that's not what the star says. I repeated this whole sugi before Rabbi and he said to me, no. Dilma Rav Elish Toivel Ima B'tzirhava. You know why I didn't mention the wage? Because it was such a nominal amount. He just sat down with him like a Yehuda, and they dipped it into fish juice, and that was the wage. So the Gemara says, how can you? It's a question. How can you tell me that's what happened? We just said the line before. Rab Nachman said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah. So maybe what maybe he did was he dipped in Mitzir because I'm not going to Rabbi Yehuda. Why don't you say that? Why is someone come along and reinterpret the whole star? It's so easy. Just say since Allah Rabbi Yehuda, the nominal amount. That's what he did. So you don't mention the star. It's so little. It's a minuscule amount. Omalei. So he said back to him. To Rav Zvid, lav hilchase itbar. Even though the Gemara said halacha, it doesn't mean halacha. Elashita itbar. What he was saying was that these three Tanaim basically all have the same pattern. They have the same attitude, same perspective, but not that the halacha is actually confusing. Halacha is like if Shimon, you have to pay a substantial wage. And Hacham, I'll prove it to you. Why do you have to repeat three times? Halacha is like a Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Yehuda, Shimon Gamliel. Lema halacha can be just tell the halacha Yehuda, which is the most. The other ones say you have to give some shearings or some wool, or it goes with his mother, and he gets the dung. Rabbi Yehuda says you get nothing, a little fish juice. So just tells the halacha Rabbi Yehuda that even a little bit of fish juice is enough for a wage. And then, of course, we know the halacha is like the other ones. Why repeat each one halacha? The mekel makulu, because really he was not saying that the halacha, he was saying that they all follow the same perspective. The halacha has actually got to give a better wage. So what happens on English? Say most like Rava, that it was not half and half, it was 2/3 and 1/3, either in the profits or in the acceptance of responsibility of the losses. Okay, have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.